Hello, and welcome to Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. It feels like I've been doing a lot of crime episodes on celebrities lately. I have another one coming next week about Garth Brooks that started out as a crazy conspiracy theory and has just now turned into an actual legal case. I'm not focused on celebrities, and I haven't gone out of my way to find celebrity crime cases lately. The fact of the matter is, there's just a lot of celebrities that are having legal troubles right now. And if you ask me, that number is going to continue to increase. Secrets can only stay hidden for so long. This is why I'm not a conspiracy theorist. You cannot keep these massive, scandalous secrets forever. They always come out. Yes, sometimes it takes years, but they do always come out. I know you've all heard about Sean Combs, Puff Daddy, Diddy, the artist formerly known as P. Diddy, the diddler of Diddleville, but we all know there's much more to come. So what I'm going to do today is break down everything that's happened to this point. And then when this case really explodes, which it's going to, we will all be up to speed on the timeline and the events that have happened thus far. I've also got some insider information, and you can decide whether or not if this insider turns out to be correct. We can look back on it later on. This is the story of the downfall of an American god, one of the biggest music producers and Hollywood moguls in the history of the world. Today, we are talking about Sean Combs, the diddler. I'm your host, Stacy Lee. Let's begin. Now, first off, there is just so much information on this case, and there are so many events and accusers that we cannot dive into each and every instance. So I'm going to give you a timeline of all of the accusations that date back almost 30 years. So we've at least mentioned everything. And then we are going to go into some of the more damning accusations more in depth. And we're going to talk about how Diddy ended up in jail. I'm not going into anything today regarding Puff Daddy, Sean Combs, P. Diddy as a producer or a musician, because that's been done to death. And frankly, I'm sick of hearing about him. This guy is a psychopath who, yes, is talented, but who is a dangerous psychopath. I would bet money that if he were to be examined, he would have at least narcissistic personality disorder, if not being a sociopath or a psychopath. You can find info on his bio and his accomplishments and his albums and his awards anywhere. I'm not going into any of that today. Let's start from the beginning of the accusations. I am going to be calling this person Diddy today because that's his most recent name change. Just like the cult leader that he is, a different kind of cult leader, but he is a cult leader. Just like the cult leader that he is, he likes to change his name as most cult leaders do. You find in our cult stories that the leader starts out being called this, and then they're this, and then they're this, and then they're this. Diddy does the same thing. So here we go from the top. Between 1990 and 1991, Diddy and R&B singer Aaron Hall were accused of sexually assaulting an unnamed victim and a friend after attending an industry event. This unnamed victim went to the police, who decided she had been sexually assaulted and then beaten badly when Diddy found out she had gone to the police. That case disappeared. In 1991, 19-year-old Joy Dickerson goes on a date with Diddy that allegedly ends with him drugging her and then sexually assaulting her while unconscious. In 1993, Diddy was fired from Uptown Records and started his own label. Why was he fired? Because people knew that he was a dangerous predator and wanted to cut ties with him. That's the inside scoop. So all of this crap now about people clutching their pearls and fake gasping that they didn't know this man was a predator is bullshit. Everybody knew. Between 1995 and 1996, Diddy allegedly assaulted a woman named April Lampros on several different occasions. April claims she was forced to perform oral sex in a car and that a parking attendant witnessed this assault. In another instance, April claims Diddy forced ecstasy down her throat with his finger and then forced her to have sex with his then girlfriend, Kim Porter. After that, April claims that these are her allegations. In 1996, Diddy is found guilty of criminal mischief for threatening a photographer from the New York Post while holding a gun as he verbally threatened this guy. In my opinion, he should have received a menacing charge for that, maybe even a terroristic threat charge, but he got off easy with simple criminal mischief. In 1998, Diddy started throwing these now infamous white parties. Guests are required to wear all white, and he earns this nickname of the modern day Gatsby for throwing these lavish parties. These parties would later on become a big source of this controversy, but they were always a who's who of Hollywood and the music industry. Anyone who was anyone was at these parties. And there were also a lot of nobodies at the parties there to be used by the famous people however they wanted. On April 16th, 1999, Diddy is arrested and charged with 2 felonies, the assault and beating of a record executive named Steve Stout, who claimed that Diddy and 2 of his bodyguards barged into his office and beat him badly with their fists, with a telephone, with a champagne bottle, and a chair. Diddy was charged with second-degree assault and criminal mischief for that attack. After his arrest and after he bailed out of jail, he publicly apologized to Steve Stout, who then asked the DA to drop the charges against Diddy. The assault charge is dropped. Diddy pleads guilty to the much lesser charge of harassment, and then Diddy pays Steve Stout $500,000 to go away. On December 27th, 1999, Diddy, along with a rapper called Shine and Diddy's then girlfriend Jennifer Lopez, are arrested after a shooting at a nightclub called Club New York. Diddy is charged with weapons violations, but strangely, I still remember how shocked I was when this verdict was read. He was acquitted of all charges. Prison. You and I would be in prison, and we all know that. In March of 2000, Diddy gets his own reality show called Making the Band on MTV, where he takes these young, beautiful female singers and makes a girl band called Danity Kane, who never really got popular, but it will become a big deal later on in the story. What happens to these girls who worked with Diddy will become big later on. In late 2000, Diddy again attacks April Lampros in her apartment. She claims she is too scared of him to come forward until later on. We will hear more about it later on. In 2001, a woman named Thalia Graves claims that Diddy and his bodyguard, a man named Joseph Sherman, her while in a recording session at Bad Boy's recording studio. Thalia claims that when she was 25, Diddy invited her to the studio. He laced her drink with drugs and she woke up bound and restrained. She then says that Diddy and Joseph Sherman took turns violently her and slamming her head into a pool table. Thalia finds out later on that the entire thing had been videotaped and shown to multiple men in order to humiliate Thalia and the producer that she was dating at the time, this kind of rival producer of Diddy's. Thalia also claims that the tape has been distributed through a pornography company that Joseph Sherman, the bodyguard, owns. This is serial killer behavior. We all know this. This is indicative of absolutely everything we see here in the true crime community about dangerous men who have a serious hatred for women. The only difference here is that Diddy didn't kill all of his victims. He stopped at the assault. There are allegations that he has killed people. They are just allegations. But he's always been confident that he would never be charged because of who he is. But his behavior is no different than the behavior we see in serial killers every day. This man has an absolute and profound hatred for women. He is also at least bisexual, if not gay, and his own self-loathing because of his non-straightness in a world that requires him to be straight plays into his hatred for the women he feels like he has to have sex with because that's who he's supposed to be. The women end up being victims of his own self-loathing because this is not a straight man. There's nothing wrong with not being straight, but in his world, there is. On March 26, 2001, TV host Roger Mills sues Diddy, accusing him of assault, false imprisonment, destruction of property, emotional distress, and civil conspiracy, stating that Diddy's little gang of dangerous and violent men beat him up and destroyed his camera. This case goes to trial in 2004, and again, the jury finds in favor of Diddy. I have lots to say, but we have a lot to get through. In 2003, it is alleged that Diddy and former Bad Boy Records president Harvey Pierre, along with a third unidentified man, gang raped an unnamed 17-year-old girl at a Manhattan recording studio. Months later, 22-year-old model Crystal McKinney alleges that Diddy drugged her and sexually assaulted her in his New York City apartment. In 2004, Danity Kane band member Dawn Richards claims Diddy verbally and physically assaulted her and held her for 48 hours without food. She claims she and her castmates were berated by Diddy and were treated in an abusive manner during the filming of the TV show Making the Band. I'm going to tell you what I remember of the show Making the Band is the girls that can all sing going in and singing and Diddy being like, nope, that doesn't sound good. No, you're off key here. You're this here, you're that here. Have you ever heard Diddy sing? Because he can't sing. So I'm just curious as to why someone who can't sing is the authority on who can sing. Produce the records, great. I'm not taking singing instructions from a producer that can't sing. I'm taking vocal instructions from a vocalist. I'm not taking guitar lessons from someone who doesn't play the guitar. I'm not taking cooking lessons from someone who can't cook. Just because Diddy has a good ear for music, it does not mean he has any knowledge at all of what it is to be a vocalist. And I was just appalled when I would watch that show and he would talk to the girls about their lackluster vocal performances. It's like, but you don't know anything about being a vocalist. You don't know anything about singing. So shut up. I mean, Diddy thought J-Lo could sing. Have you ever seen a J-Lo concert? Have you ever heard J-Lo sing live? Nope. And you never will. In July of 2004, at Diddy's annual white party, he arrives at the party with an original copy of the Declaration of Independence in his hands, on loan to him by Norman Lear, the producer. Diddy did this to show his power and his wealth to everyone at the party. In 2005, Diddy meets singer Cassie Ventura, who goes simply by Cassie professionally, for the first time. When this happens, when they meet, Cassie is 19 years old and Diddy is 37. Diddy tells Cassie he wants to sign her to his label. Dawn Richards from Danity Kane was at the meeting where Diddy and Cassie met for the first time, and she would later say that as soon as Cassie walked into the room, Diddy fixated on her, like a shark, and quickly isolated Cassie away from everyone else in the room and leaned her up against the wall and kind of pushed her into a corner so only he could speak to her. The following year, Cassie signed a 10-year album deal with Bad Boy Entertainment. She also got involved in a relationship with Diddy. She would later claim this was when a vicious cycle of abuse started. Cassie tried to tell all of us years ago that Diddy is a monster. She had claims that she endured years and years of physical, psychological, emotional abuse at the hands of Diddy. Nobody wanted to listen to her. Or people listened but didn't care enough to do anything because they didn't want to go up against Diddy. Cassie claims that he kept her on illegal drugs like coke, ketamine, and ecstasy, and that Diddy has forced her time and again to take drugs and have sex with male sex workers so Diddy could watch. This practice became known in the world of Diddy as a freak-off. This is a new phrase that pretty much all of us have now been introduced to against our own will, and we're going to get more into the freak-offs in a moment. In 2006, Dawn Richards sued Diddy, claiming he had kept all of the money earned by the band Danity Kane and that she was owed more than $1 million in back salary. Between 2006 and 2009, a dancer named Adria English claimed that she was drugged and forced to have sex with random party guests at Diddy's infamous white parties in Hamptons, in Miami, and in New York. Now, if that ever happened to you once, if it happened to her one time, why would she go back? I am very pro-victim, but I am also very pro-common sense. And if you have a horrific experience with someone, why would you ever be in that room, in the same room with that person again? Well, this woman has an answer for that, and it's one that we do need to consider. Adria claims that the first few parties she worked, she was not asked to have sex with anyone, but that over time, as she grew closer to Diddy, he groomed her and manipulated her mentally into becoming a victim of sex trafficking. And that does happen. We can't just unilaterally dismiss any claim made by a victim who went back to their accuser a second or a third or a 20th time, because grooming is a thing. It's a real thing. Adria claims that later in the relationship, Diddy would lace her drinks with ecstasy and put her in a black dress at the white parties because a woman wearing a black dress was a signal to the other guests that she was available for sex with whoever wanted it from her. This is gross. It's human trafficking. It's slavery. It's usage of people. It's vile. Adria also claims that Vibe magazine and Penske Media Corporation were totally aware that prostitution was happening at Diddy's white parties and that they published her photo without her consent. Adria also talks about a man named Jacob Arabov, who goes by Jacob the Jeweler. He's like the jeweler to the stars. She says that he would always want to have sex with her at these parties and that he was fully aware she was being trafficked. Trafficking doesn't mean you have to take somebody from America to another country or vice versa. It means transporting someone from one location to another in order for them to be used against their will. It can be across the street. In October of 2007, Diddy becomes a stakeholder in Ciroc vodka. I always forget it's called Ciroc because I call it Diddy vodka, and it sucks, by the way. A man named Gerard Rechnitzer comes forward and alleges that on March 6, 2007, Diddy punched him and pushed his girlfriend outside a nightclub called Teddy's in Hollywood. Diddy then settled that matter out of court for an undisclosed sum of money. In May of 2007, another Danity Kane star alleges that Diddy threatened her with a chair, like he was going to beat her with a chair, and that she suffered years of abuse at Diddy's hands. Now, this is getting monotonous. I want to give each victim a mention, and I have at this point. So I'm going to leave out the details from about 2010 to 2012. I will tell you that during those years, the women that I have mentioned so far, especially the women from Danity Kane, continued to make allegations of sexual assault and abuse against Diddy. In February of 2012, Diddy loses control over Cassie, and she starts dating Kid Cudi. I think it's Cudi. It's spelled C-U-D-I. Then Kid Cudi says that Diddy threatened to blow him up inside his car. 3 years later, Cassie is still under contract. Remember, she signed that 10-year contract. So she goes to have a meeting with Diddy to try and break all ties with him once and for all. They go to dinner, and then Diddy asks Cassie to come back to his apartment to sign some paperwork, finalize this, and when they got there, Cassie claims that he raped her. This is what she says. For the next few years, Diddy is able to keep his behavior a little more quiet. This is also something we see with violent men who are habitual offenders. Sometimes they have a long cooling off period or periods where they're more able to keep their behavior under wraps. The next serious allegation takes place in 2022. An unnamed victim claims that she was drugged and sexually assaulted and that this assault resulted in an unwanted pregnancy. Diddy told this victim that she had to terminate the pregnancy. And as they continued to talk through this victim claims that she was being flown all over the world in Diddy's private jet, taken to expensive hotels and restaurants, but that she was also being sexually abused. In one instance, she woke up with bruises all over the bottom of her feet, and she was covered in bite marks. And that freaks me out. The bottoms of your feet being bruised, like, what would do that? She has no memory of how she got these injuries. Diddy got more forceful about terminating the pregnancy and had other rappers start calling this woman to intimidate her. And then she eventually suffered a miscarriage. Between 2022 and 2023, a producer that goes by Lil Rod, his name is Rodney Jones, says that Diddy groped him repeatedly during the making of an album they were working on together. Lil Rod says Diddy made sexual advances on him and forced him to take illegal drugs and hire sex workers. A lawsuit is eventually filed on this matter in which Justin Dior Combs, Diddy's son, is named along with high-ranking members of Motown and Universal Music. Lil Rod is going after a bunch of people. A couple weeks after he files this lawsuit, Diddy receives the key to the city from Mayor Adams in New York. You and I would be sitting in prison. He's getting the key to the city. Let's just be honest. I don't know if you're aware, but there's a woman named Jaguar Wright who is in the music industry, and she has been talking about Diddy. She has been talking about Jay-Z. She's been talking about all this for years. There are a lot of people that are going to end up being owed apologies here. Diddy is able to buy his way out and off for years and years and years. And then something happens that changes everything. This now brings us all to November of 2023. These allegations began almost 30 years ago, and it has taken till November of 2023 to get any sort of criminal charge to begin to stick to this monster. But stick they have. Diddy, he's stuck. Cassie Ventura files a lawsuit in the New York Superior Court under the state's Adult Survivors Act. In this lawsuit, Cassie accuses Diddy of years of sexual misconduct, harassment, sex trafficking, and rape. As this case goes through the regular and usual legal process, a video is leaked of something that happened in 2016 between Cassie and Diddy. I cannot show you all of the video here. I don't think. I'm going to have to look. I might have to black some of it out. But I'm going to show you what I can. This video wasn't released until later on. I think May. Was it May of 2024? I could be wrong on that. But it was months after the lawsuit was filed. So take a look at this. This is graphic. That is sickening. But you know what is just as sickening? Why didn't the hotel call the police? Because for you or I, that hotel would have called the police. Screw Diddy. Forget about Diddy. Think about Cassie. A hotel security team is just going to sit there and watch this and totally and completely ignore a woman being viciously and violently beaten. It sickens me. It's disgusting. And I truly hope Cassie is suing that hotel. I do. In our system, sometimes the only justice that you get are monetary damages. And this hotel deserves to get sued for having an attack like that on tape and not calling the cops. And if the cops were called, that's an even bigger scandal because that means the cops are crooked too. This kind of shit should disturb all of us because it is a big deal. A man like Diddy doesn't get away with this stuff on his own for decades. You know that, I know that. A man like Diddy needs accomplices, and he's had plenty. So this story, it's just massive because it involves so many other people. Now, of course, before the tape comes out, Diddy releases a statement about Cassie's lawsuit, calling her a gold digger. He says the allegations are outrageous. He denies everything. And then we find out later on the abuses on tape. Can you imagine what it feels like to be the victim of someone's bad behavior? And you try and tell people that someone is treating you badly. And people say something like, well, there's two sides to every story. Or obviously it takes two to tango. You guys just see things differently and shit like that. I can totally imagine what that feels like because it's happened to me. There is no worse feeling in the world than having someone lie on you. There is no worse feeling in the world than having someone close to you call you a liar, gaslight you, tell you versions of things that never happened, twist versions of things that did happen to become a totally different narrative. It is absolutely the worst feeling in the world. I would rather experience the worst physical pain imaginable than that type of gaslighting and manipulation because you begin to question your own sanity. It is pure evil to do that to another person. After Cassie comes forward, as is often the case, other victims see the doors are open and they realize that together they might be believed. Joy Dickerson comes forward and files a lawsuit of her own. Then another lawsuit is filed by someone who chooses to remain anonymous. A month later, a fourth person who remains unnamed files a charge against Diddy for a gang that occurred in 2003. That day, Diddy writes on his Instagram, "Enough is enough." Oh, is it? Is it, you pathetic, vile little weaselly thing? I think all of Diddy's victims have felt enough is enough for years. I have never understood the appeal of Diddy. He's talented. There's no question about it. He was also in the right place at the right time. He's also a very hard worker. A lot of psychopaths are. But let's not lie and say this man is very charismatic or has a great personality or that he's handsome. These beautiful women would not be with him if he wasn't rich and famous. And that's just the truth. This man is no prize as a human being. He is a prize because he's rich and famous. In December of 2023, 18 different brands sever all ties with Diddy. All of his brand deals, all his endorsements, all his sponsors, they are like rats on a sinking ship. Rats who knew all along who this person was and were just perfectly happy to continue to make money off of his name. So let's be truthful about that. On December 11th of 2023, the Recording Academy releases a statement saying it's taking all of these allegations very seriously and it is reevaluating Diddy's status as a Grammy award-winning artist. They may strip him of his Grammys. 2 days later, Hulu announces that it has scrapped a reality show featuring Diddy that was going to focus on him and his family. He has a whole bunch of kids and different baby mamas, and the show is going to be about all that. Also, if you're wondering why I'm not bringing up like Kim Porter's death, Aaliyah's death, all of that stuff, I'm waiting. There's definitely going to be a part 2, believe me. Today, we're getting through the list of allegations. On January 12th, 2024, Diddy's rep tells the press that Diddy would not be at the Grammys. The next month, Diddy's tequila company cuts him loose. And then comes the big day.
Department of Homeland Security conducting a raid at a house in Holmby Hills, believed to be connected to Sean Combs, the rapper and music executive, perhaps being linked to a sex trafficking investigation. Let's go live to Stu Mundell up in Skyfox right now for more. Stu, what do we know? All right, there you see Skyfox overhead of this home where, again, we are seeing Department of Homeland Security investigators making a search of this home now. Let's go to Haley Winslow, who's live on the ground right there.
About 30 different law enforcement vehicles at least. There are 3 Bearcats on scene here. This just all unfolded, Sandra, I would say less than 10 minutes ago. We got here even before the crime scene tape came up. So we're just down the hill. If you look up this street where Tony is right now to the right, you'll see one of those Bearcats and law enforcement. And on the other side of those bushes, basically, is that home that is registered to Bad Boy Films, which is part of Bad Boy Entertainment. And the home in particular is registered not only to Bad Boy Films, but to one of P. Diddy's daughters. Now, we are hearing from law enforcement sources that this involves sex trafficking, but we don't yet know to what extent.
Nope, just these the guys on the ground down there, the heavily armed officers that made their way inside. They actually are kind of just milling about or holding the perimeter, as it would be. The non-essential, you can see them making their way back over to these armored vehicles, probably doing a little debrief about what they saw. In any type of these situations, it really is, you know, you've got these armored officers that go in first, but I would venture to say the investigators or the people that know what they're looking for probably still out there on the streets, and they're waiting for that all clear to make sure that there is absolutely nobody on this property. And again, this is just a precaution. They don't want to have any kind of issues. Maybe somebody's hiding still, maybe just scared. And it, you know, doesn't have to be nefarious, and just because they don't know what's going on, and they just don't want to have somebody pop out of a closet or a bathroom or any one of these rooms while they're doing that investigation, and then other problems can ensue. So that's basically why we're seeing that large presence. They keep walking through there, and like you mentioned, this is an extremely large home, and probably with with many rooms and little secret areas. So they want to make sure that everything is cleared before they allow those investigators in to start doing that investigation, whatever it is that they're looking for. But you can see a number of those officers making their way back into that major, this is the big main house as it would be, making their way back inside. And I would venture to say that they're going to just go through every one of those rooms and make sure that there is nobody in there. I don't think they're those guys that we're seeing, guys and gals that we're seeing in those heavily armored gear and equipment, I don't think they're actually searching for any items that could connect whatever the investigation is. I would venture to say that those are going to be the guys that you're seeing right there, and they're waiting for that all clear. And then this group that you see there, those are the ones that are actually going to go inside. They probably have, like you said, they probably have ideas what they're looking for, where they might be. So, but right now, it is still a waiting game to make sure that everybody is out of this building and that it is secure for the investigators to make their way in and actually start that search.
And we should mention, thank you, Stu, that if this is in fact involving a sex trafficking investigation, we do know that according to Diddy's attorneys and the rapper himself, he has denied any wrongdoing in any of all this. So there are two sides, of course, to this as this all plays out. But it is interesting that these raids happening at the same time. According to TMZ, a raid of his Miami home is happening right now, as well as now we're looking at the live pictures of what's going on in Holmby Hills at this mansion right here, all connected to Sean Combs. So again, until we find out further word as to what exactly they're searching for and why, we continue to look at the procedures taking place regarding this raid that's being conducted by Homeland Security.
Two of Diddy's homes, one in LA and one in Miami, are raided simultaneously by Homeland Security. The raids were the result of a mounting list of civil lawsuits filed by multiple victims spanning almost 30 years. Detectives released a press statement saying that the items being seized were laptops, flash drives, digital devices, files, anything else that might connect Diddy with the multiple allegations he is facing. The day after the raid, Diddy's attorney releases a statement whining about gross overuse of military force, there being no excuse for what happened, that Diddy's children and employees were affected by the search, which I'm sure they were, but blame Diddy for that. Diddy's the one committing the criminal behavior. Since that raid, more victims have come forward and filed lawsuits. All throughout the spring of 2024, lawsuits have continued to be filed. After the video with Cassie being beat up comes out, Diddy's scrambling, and he comes out and releases a video apologizing for his behavior.
I was up. I hit rock bottom, but I make no excuses. My behavior on that video is inexcusable. I take full responsibility for my actions in that video.
By July of 2024, there are 9 lawsuits against Diddy filed by women claiming to have been raped or abused by Diddy. In early September, just a few weeks ago, a $100 million judgment is set in place against Diddy. It is awarded to a man named Derek Lee Cardello Smith, who claims that Diddy drugged him and assaulted him 27 years ago. I found the judgment online, and it is a default judgment entered because Diddy failed to show in court. So that judgment probably won't hold up in the end once Diddy's attorneys are done with it. But why weren't Diddy's attorneys in court? That's what I want to know. Failure to appear doesn't always mean the person charged didn't appear. Sometimes you don't have to be in court. It just has to be your attorneys. But apparently not even Diddy's attorneys appeared, which is very strange for someone so rich and powerful. I can't give you a reason as to why that happened. But because they failed to show, this man got a default judgment. Don Richards of Danity Kane files a 10th lawsuit seeking unpaid wages and damages for more abuse. The investigation continues for months. And then, on a warm September day, anyone with their TV on starts to hear the breaking news. Sean Combs, Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, has been arrested. On September 16th, 2024, just weeks ago, Sean Diddy Combs was arrested on a Monday night at the Park Hyatt Hotel in Manhattan and was taken into custody by Homeland Security investigators. The arrest was made based on an indictment that was unsealed the following day. Diddy is charged with human trafficking, terrorism, drug smuggling, racketeering, interstate transportation for prostitution, and other organized crime activity. Racketeering, a lot of people don't really know what that means. It's really simple. Look at it this way. When you hear in the old movies, they say, that's quite a racket he's got going. It basically means a system put in place of illegal activities for profit. It says not only does this guy sell drugs, but he also runs women, and those two things are kind of mixed together. He's running a racket. It's racketeering. It basically means a network of crimes that kind of help each other out and benefit the person that's running the racket. After Diddy's arrest, Thalia Graves files a lawsuit, and we hear about all the abuse she claims to have suffered through the years. A few days later, a 12th lawsuit is filed by an unnamed victim. And then we start to hear about the freak-offs. Jaguar Wright comes forward. There are other celebrities coming forward. Ashton Kutcher. I don't want to talk too much on this, but there are rumors that he's moved out of his house that he shares with Mila Kunis, his longtime partner, because she's found some things out about him. That is a rumor. But when Homeland Security raids Diddy's houses, they find 1,000 bottles of baby oil and thousands of bottles of lube. I think the last bottle of baby oil I bought was probably 3 or 4 years ago. Sometimes I use it when my skin gets really dry in the winter. Who has 1,000 bottles of baby oil? On top of that, like, ew. I don't want to get too graphic here, but there are certain things that you're not supposed to put in certain areas, and baby oil is not supposed to go inside. We start hearing about these freak-offs that were days long, how Diddy would prepare his house with these for these orgies by bringing in these mattresses that were placed in the mansions for anyone to just jump on into the action anytime they saw something going on. Porn stars and sex workers start coming forward on TikTok, talking about how they were hired to attend these freak-offs and have sex with anyone who wanted sex. One of these porn stars has come forward and she says that she has seen Busta Rhymes. She has seen Ja Rule at these freak-offs, and she says she's also seen people like Paris Hilton and Reverend Al Sharpton, and even Diana Ross, who was there with her son, Evan, who was underage at the time, which brings me to my next point. The parties, these freak-offs apparently did not start. It wasn't just like, oh, it's 8 o'clock, everybody start going at it. This is so gross. But they would start off more like a regular rich people party. But then around 1 a.m., the lights were turned down, the music got turned up, the vibe of the music changed, gallons of alcohol would be brought out, the baby oil and the lube came out, the drugs came out, and these freak-offs would continue for days. I would need to be heavily drugged. Drug me into oblivion because no, I want to shower. I want to shower talking about this. I am a person who does not love germs. I try not to let it freak me out too much or become too obsessive about it. But the thought of all the slipping and sliding and sweat and saliva, I can't. You don't know these people. You don't know where their ding-a-lings been. Okay, I'm going to stop. But apparently, all of these freak-offs were videotaped. So the question on the tips of all tongues at this point is, who is on the tapes? I'm just going to briefly touch on this, but according to people like Jaguar Wright and others like Cat Williams, who have been talking about this for years, it is literally a who's who of the music and Hollywood industry. We're going to do a deeper dive into this part of the story after more information is released. But at this point, it is pretty much understood that Diddy is on tape having sex with multiple men on these tapes, and that some of these men are alleged to be Usher, Fabulous. They talk a lot about Justin Bieber. I certainly hope this person has not been abused in the way that they say he has, but I have a bad feeling that he has. There's a talk by Diddy's bodyguard, a man named Gene Deal, that says Ja Rule and Diddy had sexual relations on a regular occasion. A rapper called YK Osiris said on an Instagram Live, while he was visibly distressed, I will add, that he had been messed with in the industry and that he was going to check himself into the Beverly Hills Psych Hospital. Lil Rod has publicly stated that Diddy has had sex with Meek Mill, the artist named Meek Mill, and with Stevie J, who is a big producer. I only know him I watched a few episodes of Love and Hip Hop, and he was on that. And then, of course, we have to talk about Jay-Z, Beyonce, J-Lo, the big fish. As of now, there is no concrete proof of their involvement, but the rumor mills are running wild. Now, remember, Diddy is sitting in prison as we speak. He's been denied bail. He ain't going anywhere. Do you think this psycho is going to go down alone? This is a very evil, very spoiled, very narcissistic man. I find it hard to imagine that he's going to show any honor among thieves here. I think he's going to try and do whatever he can to get as little time as possible. But if even one of the allegations in the 12 lawsuits are true, any type of trafficking, any type of rape, any type of sexual assault, he is looking at 25 years easily. That's if one of the allegations are true. Diddy is, I think, a year older than I am. So 20 years, 25 years for him, that's all the good time he has left. And he could get that for one of the allegations he's facing. And he ain't facing one. He's facing many, many allegations. So for now, we wait. We wait and we watch and we wonder who is on those tapes. Why do we care so much that black men might be gay or bisexual? I don't care at all. And what, if anything, did J-Lo know? What does Beyonce know? What does Jay-Z know? I said earlier in the episode, we're going to have to look back and see about these allegations. How much of this is true? How much of what Jaguar Wright is saying is true? Cat Williams, is Beyonce involved? Is Jay-Z involved? Is J-Lo involved? We don't know right now. We're going to have to look back on this episode later on. And what does all of this have to do with the Illuminati? Well, we're just going to have to save that for Conspiracy Day. Thank you for joining me today on Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. Please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more from me. I've also got 2 podcasts. This one is Dining with Death. These are true crime stories. It's just the audio taken from the video episodes I posted to YouTube here years ago. This is the current podcast. It's all re-recorded. The audio is perfect. These are true crime stories, cult stories, conspiracy stories, dark stories, and I post new episodes every Monday and every Wednesday. Both podcasts are on Apple, Spotify, and Amazon. You can join my Patreon. Some of you generously give a few dollars a month to help me keep the episodes coming because Lord knows I don't get paid by these platforms. And if you do not already know, our community is involved in a perpetual fundraiser. You can watch this video here on my channel. It's a few minutes long and it will tell you everything our community does to raise money to donate to police departments that have cold case DNA in storage that's never been tested. I appreciate you hanging out with me today. I know you have lots of options and you guys have been really, really kind and supportive in the comments. I know you feel my frustration. I just feel stonewalled at this point. I've got promoters hired trying to figure out why the channel does not get in front of the eyes that it needs to be in front of, but we just don't have a lot of answers at this point. And you know, I've committed to staying here through the end of the year. We'll just kind of have to see what happens over the next few months. So if you can, drop my channel name in the comments on other channels and help me get some more eyes on the videos. That'd be amazing. Stay safe, my friends, and be kind to each other. And I will see you next time on Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. Bye.